everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and I'm here today with a design team post from Scrapping for Less. Today I'm going to be using Summer Floaties stamp set and paper pad from Scrapping for Less, and I'm going to be making this twist pop-up card with no die. So I'll start by saying that this is from May Made It. These are her dimensions and stuff, so I'm just going to show you how I put this card together though. So you're going to take an 8.5 inch by 10 3/4 inch piece of paper. Then you're going to score the 10.5 or 10 3/4 side by 3 7/8, 5 3/8, and 6 7/8. Now I wanted to show how this could certainly be done on your trimmer if you don't have a big scoreboard or something like that. So don't be afraid to try it with different things, even putting it on a piece of foam and using a ruler and going down with a bone folder or something like that will give you the creases that you need to make this. So again, that's 3 7/8, 5 3/8, and 6 7/8. Then you're going to flip it over, and on the 8.5 inch side you're going to score at 2 1/4 inches all the way down, up and down, 4 1/4 inches, and 6 1/4 inches. So that's all the scoring you're going to be doing on this. Now I watched a lot of videos. I guess I kind of felt like May did. She had said she had watched tons of them and her head hurt afterwards with all the measuring, and so she wanted to create something that did not have all that. So this is what she came up with, and it worked great. So then you're going to cut out the 4 corners at the score lines there. Now you don't want to go too far over the score lines. If you can kind of get right in the center of them, that's kind of the best, but not too much more than that. Now the side, that piece that I just cut, isn't going to be shown, so that you really don't have to worry about that as much, but those longer side, the other piece, is going to be shown, so you will see that with how this card is made. Now you can certainly do this other ways and actually trim it down some so that you don't see that and not even bother having that, but that's certainly a choice that you can make when you're making the card. I liked having the little frame around the frame. This is going to be an A2 size card, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And once I get through cutting all of those out, now I kept all of those pieces like she did to use. I actually ended up using them throughout this card, so don't throw these scraps away. I know I've been trying to get better with keeping boxes and boxes of scraps, but you can use all of this. So right now you've used one whole sheet of paper, and I'm just using white because you're really not going to see a ton of it. Then cut off about 1/4 inch or so, and I didn't measure this or anything, and you're going to cut it at an angle, meaning the top part is going to be about 1/4 inch, and then you go thinner and thinner all the way down till you get to kind of the end. And so that's just so that it doesn't pop out of you just don't see the stuff as much when you're looking at the card once it's completed. Now you are going to take those sides on the end, so the short side, the 8.5 inch side, and I was thinking about scoring this, but then I thought this isn't going to be scored directly down the center. So then I went back, and I wanted to leave all of this in here today so that you can see. I know I've had some people say, oh, I make card folding look simple, and it's not that it's always simple, but sometimes you just kind of got to think through the process while you're doing it and before you make any big moves or do anything big with it. So I ended up doing it like she did. It was kind of the best, is I just stuck my bone folder right in the center where it crisscrossed and then folded over so that that center side piece score line is going to line up with the score line that is on the bottom side of that card, on the long side of it. So you see, if you look at it, it's not really folded like at the corners. It's kind of a little bit off, and I'm sure that's part of what a lot of the measuring has to do with, but this worked out perfect. No, I shouldn't say that this worked out perfect. It works out perfect when you do it perfectly. I did not. And I also wanted to leave that in here so that you can see it's not always that everything is perfect when somebody makes it, especially from design teams. And I don't want people to feel frustrated that they can't do the same things, because you really can do these things. And you're going to do the same thing with the other side. So then you're going, and that's going to make kind of the mechanism part. So you got that cross in the center, or the X in the center. And then you're just going to kind of fold in and line everything up and then score it good. Now, when I did this, I did not score this straight. And you can see, and I actually show you at the end here, when I put this in there, the one side I put in straight and the other side's a little bit off. Now, do I really care that much? No. Is the person that I'm going to give this card to going to really be looking that hard at it? No, of course, we see our errors way more than anybody else who's looking at it will. But you want to make sure that you score everything down really well. And that's going to be your mechanism to make the pop out. The next thing you're going to do is take some pattern paper, or whatever type of paper that you want in there, and you're going to cut this down. Now, one thing is, make sure if there's a pattern on it that it's going in the right direction. So when you open the card, this is going to go on the inside of the card. So you're going to cut it at 3 3/4 inches to make those pieces. And when you do, don't worry about cutting it longer or the length right now, because you're just going to kind of trace over this. So now you're going to want this a little bit above the line, because you're going to have that frame around there. See how it kind of frames it perfectly? Now, I will even tell you to go a little bit more than what you actually want as far as the amount that you leave down at the bottom, because I ended up having to cut a little bit off of mine. And I'm going to do the same thing with the second piece. And like I said, if you're using a pattern, make sure that it's going in the right direction. Because when you open that card, and you'll see in a minute when I put these in there, you're going to be kind of putting them in opposite directions. So one's going to go one way, the other's going to go in the other way, with the points kind of meeting towards the middle of that point that's on the mechanism for the card. So right in that spot is where it's going to go. And you'll see here I had to cut a little bit more off. And if you want to be safer than sorry, you can do that afterwards so that you don't cut off too much of it. And like I said, I did not measure this, because you're really not going to see this part, so I wasn't worried about this being perfect. I was more worried about the bottom half being straight than I was worried about that part, because like I said, that's going to be covered up with the pop-up portion of the card. And then you're just going to adhere it down with some liquid glue or some double-sided tape or tape runners, whatever you got to work with. You're going to pop those inside, and like I said, the important part is the bottom and the sides, because you're not going to see the top. So don't worry if the top is perfect. Don't worry about if it makes, what's going on down there. Make sure your bottom part is, because that's the part that you're going to see. You won't see the inside. You're going to lay down that second piece. And then we're going to go to making the card base and the pop-up portion of the card. So that's it. That's the whole mechanism right there. And that's going to go into the card base. Now I have another piece of paper that I'm cutting a 3-inch strip off of, long ways, 11 inches, and then I'm cutting it down to 4 1/4, and I'm going to score it at 5 1/2. Then I'm scoring the 3-inch by 11 strip at 2 3/4, 5 1/2, and 8 1/4. I'm just going to fold up my card base. Now this is a top folding card, and for this you really don't even need a scoreboard for this. If you fold the paper in half and then fold each of the sides kind of into itself, or in half of the half, then you're going to end up with the numbers and the measurements that you need for that. Then I'm just going to kind of pick up and decide what I wanted to do. So I used one of the pieces from the pattern paper that were left over from that 3 1/4 inch that I cut off, and I'm going to use that for my decoration. cut that little tip off there, and I threw it away. I did not save it. And then I'm going to cut down these pieces to a 2 3/4 by 2.5 panel, and I'm making 4 of them. And those are what's going to go on to the panel. Now I end up changing a few things as I kind of did this, but that's what you need if you want to layer it. Now if you want to layer it even more, you can cut it down another 1/4 inch so that you can get to those numbers that you need. Now I'm using the stamp set, and I'm going to stamp these images with some Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'm going to stamp the sentiments with VersaFine black ink. And I was going back and forth on what I wanted to do, and I wanted something that was going to kind of outline it, give it a little bit more. So then what I decided was to take this strip that I had and cut it down to go into the boxes, and I'm going to use my paper punch here and cut out that little scalloped circle for the sentiments, and then I'm going to put those on the pattern paper. And then the images that I stamp, I'm just going to stamp those and put them onto the card pop-up portion of the card right directly to it. So that way I don't have to worry about putting on more layers or anything like that. Instead of cutting them out and all of that, I'm just going to pop them on directly from those pieces. And I think, like I said, I like how this worked out. The pattern paper, again, I used up some more of that pattern paper, the strips. So I used the 1 strip on the front of the card, and I used the 2nd strip on the sentiments of the card, and I think it worked out great. So I used 2 sheets of the 6 by 6 pattern paper and 2 sheets of 8.5 by 11 to make this. Then I am going to, like I said, stamp these images onto here, and I'm going to color them. Now I'm not leaving the coloring in here. I will show you all the colors that I used though, because this is already a pretty long video and my coloring skills are not the greatest. There are far better people to watch than me on that. So just so you can see what colors I use though, I did leave that in here for you. And then after I kind of get through all of this and I show you the colors, it's really just kind of putting the card together and making everything kind of work correctly with it. So now, like I said, I'm going to pop those images into the card, into the pop-up portion of the card. And these little summer floaty girls are so cute. She's got a donut floaty and the other one's got a flamingo. I can't take the cuteness. I really can't. And the sentiments on the inside said summer girl, and it's pool time. And then I also end up cutting out a scalloped circle and using the other sentiment that's part of this stamp set to put on the front. So now you're going to take that mechanism portion and you're going to line up one side. So the easiest way I think to do this is to kind of set the center of that 11" by 3" strip in the center of the card area, and then on the top half of one side and the bottom half of the other side, you're just going to tape those down while leaving that center in there. And see, and that's the whole mechanism part. So then when you pop it inside of there and adhere it all down, when you open it up, it's just going to pop right open. Now, because I had already done the front, I needed to make sure that it opened correctly. And then as I put it in there, I realized that the one side was a little bit off, which is what I was telling you, that my score lines were not perfectly straight with this, and so it made it a little bit off. And that I cut off a little bit of that green that was in there. You can't tell. If I didn't tell you, you'd probably never know. So just you can see, like I said, that it doesn't have to be exactly perfect when you're doing it. And then once you adhere one side down, and you're going to put that corner all the way up to the corner, not over the score line for the card, but right up to that corner, or right up to the score line. And you just adhere it in there. And that's it. That's the whole card. And to end off, I just, like I said, decorate this. There's the scalloped circle. I'm going to use the other sentiment that was part of this. that says, "Have a bright sunny day." I do pop that up with some foam tape, and then I'm going to find some sequins that I have in my stash from other kits, and I don't even know where half of it came from, but I'm going to find some sequins that kind of match with the colorings in this, and I decided just to stick those on the strip of pattern paper and then on the sentiment, and just leave the card base itself without any on. And I put some of those on. So that is it. Like I said, it's really pretty simple, and even if it's not perfect, nobody's going to really know but you. And I know for somebody like me that has issues with control, it's hard. It's hard to walk away from it and say, you know what, it's fine. But when you look at it, do you see that, oh my gosh, it's, the top isn't even exactly straight? You don't. So thanks for joining me, everybody. I hope this video was helpful. Make sure you check out Scrapping for Less for this new release, and check out a couple of these videos here. Thanks, and have a great day. Take care.